What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for lineups.com. Let's talk a little week 9 survivor as we get going here. I'm so glad you're watching this video, which means you survived last week, in which we saw the most improbable loss, well, in a couple of weeks. Obviously, the Cardinals loss right up there with the Bengals loss, getting run down in the fourth quarter by the New York Football Jets, missed extra point, all kinds of craziness going on. Missed field goals and things and whatnot that got you there with all of that. So you dodged that one, and then you dodged taking the Falcons with Kirk Cousins, who looked like absolute complete dust. Looks like he cannot play football in the NFL anymore at all. So at least you dodged that stuff. We are sitting here as we go into week number 9. Here's Noop's article. You can go in, take a look at who he likes this week. We can look at some contenders, and there are several, and that starts with Thursday Night Football. The Ravens is 7.5-point favorites. I am holding off on the Ravens. I think this team can only get better with time. Lamar, first game off of being injured. I'm not going to, like, it's hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries get re-injured all the time. And so let me make sure he's good to go before I use him, but it is an option, at least there. For the Ravens, you can go down and see the Lions are big 8.5-point favorites. You can see the Packers are sitting here at 13.5. The Chargers on the road up to 9-point favorites over the Titans. Dead team walking there. In that one, a little bit further down, you can see the Rams 14-point favorites over the Saints, who have gone to Tyler Shuck as their quarterback. That is going to be the Rams coming out of a bye there and getting the rookie quarterback. So several different options this week for us. Like I said, I'm bypassing the Ravens. I'm going to save them. I'm going to make sure that Lamar is good to go. I think you can only get a better version of the Ravens as opposed to this one right here with Lamar's first game back in several weeks. So I'm not going there. The most popular choice of the week is going to be the Rams, and for good reason. As we said, not only are they 2-touchdown favorites, they're coming out of a bye. They get Puka Nacua back. You get up nice and rested. The offensive line is going to be healthy, and you get the Saints making a quarterback change to a rookie that they didn't feel comfortable enough going with from the beginning of the season. Pretty great situation for the Rams. When I did my ideal path, you can go to the various sites, pool geniuses of the world, and you can take a look at, your optimal path. Of course, things change, injuries and whatever and all that stuff. But like my optimal path always had me playing the Rams this week against the Saints. And so it only got better for me, considering that the Saints are switching to Shook. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the Rams. I am down to one entry over in Circa. We can take a look here. This is my lone little entry. It only takes one, though, right? It only takes one. So 9 are dead, down to the last one. You can see fairly decent entry here whenever you see the teams that I have used. If you kind of go in and you start to look at what everybody else has available, I'm one of 136 remaining entries that has the Ravens, Lions, Chiefs, Chargers, Rams, Eagles, and Bucks, all teams that I think everybody thinks are good teams, like really good teams. So I'm one of only 136 entries that have all of those teams. But, it's a long way to go. Long way to go in this. And so, like I said, I think one of those teams is going to get burned this week in the Rams for me. Like I said, was always going to use them this week, and I don't see any reason to get cute and get off of it. When the situation gets better, getting a rookie quarterback, making his first start. So I don't see any reason to get off of that. Now, if you have already used the Rams, there's another slam dunk spot, which is the Packers here at home against the Panthers. Now, it does look like Bryce Young is going to be back. He did practice in full on Wednesday and Thursday, so that is at least a step in the right direction for the Panthers. They are still 13.5-point dogs against a Packer defense that really gets after the quarterback and all that. I think that this is a fine pivot if you don't have the Rams available. That said, the one thing would be if you have them both available, the only reason I would say maybe you'd want to hang on here to the Packers is there are multiple opportunities moving forward to use the Packers if you find yourself in a pinch. Now, I don't have them available. As you saw when I showed you my entry, I've already used them, but They get the Giants in week 11. It is on the road, but again, if you're in a pinch, you don't feel bad about rolling them out against the Giants. They get Minnesota in week number 12. I'm of the opinion J.J. McCarthy might not be ready for the NFL quite yet, so that could be an appealing matchup in week 12. They also get the Bears at home in week 14. They get the Bears on the road again in week 16. They get Minnesota. If you make it all the way to the end, they get the Vikings in week 18. That would be on the road, but again, I'm just not sold on J.J. McCarthy just in general. So I think Green Bay has a decent amount of future value. So if you have both the Rams and them, then, again, I prefer the Rams, but do with it what you will. The other popular choice this week is going to be the Chargers, and I'm never going to talk you off of playing a team against the worst team in the NFL. The Titans have proven to be the worst team in the NFL, and it's like the worst team with a bullet, right? My only thing here is in that optimal path, I have the Chargers at home in week 13 against Las Vegas, against the Raiders. So again, that's my optimal path in a week that's at least a little bit tricky there in Thanksgiving on week 13, especially if you're in Circa, because Thanksgiving is its own week. And so you're already down a few games that you could possibly use there in like week 13B, so just something to think of there for that. But again, I'm not going to knock you for playing the Chargers. I'm just going to say for me, I'm looking out at week 13 that I think could be a tricky week as it is anyway. And really like the Chargers there in week 13 against the Raiders. So that's kind of why I'm not going to be using them. If you're not in Circa and you don't have to worry about the holiday weeks, then, fire if you want to, because if you still have Baltimore plays Cincinnati that week, Joe Burrow will not be back at that point. So, you have a backup option if you have the Ravens as well there for that week. I think the only other game that is going to garner really any attention here this week from a survivor standpoint, and this is if people are really trying to kind of go off the beaten path and you didn't use them to get here, would be the Patriots at home against the Falcons. The Falcons looked so incredibly bad last week. That said, Penix is listed as we record this as day-to-day, so Penix might go. And so like the thing is, the Falcons are have at least a puncher's chance if Penix goes. Now, if it's Cousins again after what we saw last week, I mean, he looked absolutely atrocious. But I think what we're doing here, there's so many other good options this week. Do you really want to roll with the Patriots if Penix goes, because they're at least competent at that point? Especially, too, if you're holding the Patriots, I think you're holding a pretty good team and a fairly decent entry for the future, because you have the Jets in week 11. You have Cincinnati in week number 12. You have, Cincinnati in week number 12, the Giants in week number 13. If you make it all the way to the end, like the Dolphins in week 18, the Jets in week 17, so because that division is as weak as it is, you're getting those games like towards the end of the season over and over again. So again, I think I like New England a little bit later. I already burned them, so I don't have them. I don't have a choice, but I'll put it this way. If I did have them, I'm holding on to them, because you're going to feel good about rolling them out against, if you had to roll them out in a week where you're feeling kind of up against the wall, you're not flinching to roll them out against the Jets. You're not flinching to roll them out against the Dolphins. You're not flinching to roll them out against the Giants, So for me, that's going to be about it. Past that, don't think there's going to be really any other teams get any sort of popularity that we really need to discuss here. I mean, if there's another team on your radar, you should probably ask yourself why there's another team on your radar this week. I mean, I think you're probably getting a little too out of bounds if you want to do that. I mean, again, we didn't discuss the Lions, and that's mainly because I've talked about the Lions so many different times in these videos. But what I will say is, if you're not in Circa, it changes the view on the Lions for sure, because you don't have to worry about the holiday weeks. The Lions, for me, are a wild card team because they play on both of the holiday weeks in the Circa one. If you're in a contest that counts the holiday weeks, the Lions are just a great team to have in your back pocket because they're one of the highest rated, power rated teams in the NFL, and they play on both of the holiday weeks. So that's awesome. You know, I mean, again, you're not loving playing them against Green Bay if you had to on Thanksgiving, but again, like there's only a few games. I mean, like if you get backed into a corner, at least you have options, right? So, but that game against Minnesota on Christmas, even though it's on the road, is starting to look juicier and juicier to me. So, kind of have my eye there on that one for Detroit. So, them in Kansas City just so incredibly valuable to hold on to because of their versatility in these contests and stuff. So something to think about with the Lions. However, if you're not in Circa and you want to use the Lions, just think, is it better to use them this week when I have these other options? Or what about week 12 against the Giants? The Giants are coming to Detroit, right, in week number 12 if you want to fire them out there. Dallas is coming in week 14. Pittsburgh is coming in week 16, right? I mean, it's just lots and lots of opportunities to use the Lions if you don't have to use them on the holiday weeks. So with the other options, I would pass on them, but again, not a bad play by any stretch of the imagination. I love them. I bet them in this game against the Vikings, but I just like them for Survivor a little bit later on. So not an option for me. If you don't care about burning them, I get it, but Rams, Chargers, Packers, super strong options this week and wouldn't stray too far from those, especially if I have the Lions. So again, wish Sun Run entry number 6 some luck this week as we roll with the chalk. It is going to be the Rams. Rams are going to be chalk, but with that, I'm just not going to deviate from the plan this week and go ahead, move on. We'll deal with it from there. Guys, if you haven't done so already, everything we do absolutely free on this channel. Hit that subscribe button down below. Let me know in the comments how you are going to play this week, and hopefully I see you back here on the channel in week number 10. Good luck on all your Survivor plays.